Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McCrae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing well now. We just had a nice little chat before this, but before that I was a little stressed getting on, running a little late. So definitely a little time management this morning was needed, but I'm doing better now. How are you?
I am digging deep into all the tools that I have been given. It's the 20th of December here in the UK. So yesterday, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson cancelled Christmas for the UK, and we've been given stay-at-home orders. So where we were supposed to be spending it with our family and seeing lots of people socially distanced, it's all been cancelled, and now we are going to be locked in our house for Christmas, just me and Jim. So I'm digging deep into all of the strategies that I've learnt over the last few years and not getting too sad about it, allowing myself a little bit of sadness, but then also thinking of all the positives and planning for loveliness. We went to the shops this morning and bought turkey crown and lots of nice vegetables and treats as well, and some wine. So yeah, seeing the positives. And actually, I think we might look back on this time and in hindsight see actually we get to spend Christmas with our favourite person and not have manic kids running around and stressful parents and all this jazz. Not that my parents are stressful. Hi, Mom, I love you. And Dad. But, you know, I'm digging deep into that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different holiday season this year for so many. And I know you guys had been looking forward to being able to spend that time together, and then to have it kind of pulled away is a challenge. So, and obviously this is releasing much later than when Christmas has happened, but I hope you guys have a good, quiet holiday. We will too. So even though we can see family.
That's a nice thought though, isn't it? That I always talk about like planning for your future self. So whenever whoever is listening to this, it will be the something of January, I guess.
I think 4th. Yeah.
Yeah. The 4th week of January. So the me on the 4th of January, will I really mind that I didn't see my in-laws on Christmas Day, but I'll see them in a few weeks or months time? No, of course not. It's just a day. It's just, sorry, Jesus, it's your birthday, but it's just another day.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Cool. So today we are going back into how to lose weight, and having listened back to it, I think Emily and I both agree. Sorry, Emily, it was me. I got a bit sciencey and kind of just was stating the facts. It was probably a bit of a hard going episode, for which I'm sorry, but also, as Emily reminded me, it's something that we needed to do because we want to give you the facts. We are not the big weight loss company like, I wonder if one day we'll get in trouble for saying all of these names.
Like they're only going to get upset if they know we're right. So
exactly. We're not one of these big kind of conglomerates or like the big beach bodies of the world who lie to you. We're telling you the facts. This is how weight loss works. But don't worry, in this episode, we get a bit more fun and real about it. So today, last episode, we said, essentially, if you want to lose fat, not weight, if you want to lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit. And today we're going over how to be in a calorie deficit, but also how to be in a calorie deficit well, because you could just eat one chocolate bar a day and be in a calorie deficit, but that would be quite miserable and not particularly good for your mental or physical health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like Jo said, if you kind of jumped ship on the last episode, it was heavy. It was a lot in terms of the science, but that is our goal, is to bring you the science and the reasons behind why we're doing this, and then show you how to apply it. So last week was us bringing you the science of it. And now this week is, okay, how do we take that information and apply it? So maybe go back, try and give it another listen and see how it is all going to relate into these next few episodes of the weight loss series and how you can apply it to your own life.
If you did jump ship, the short notes are you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. And we went over different ways to work out what your calories should be for maintaining weight, putting on weight, losing weight, and all the tools that you would need to do that.
Mhm.
But today, essentially, how to create a calorie deficit. So, what is a calorie deficit?
So it's eating less calories than you are expending.
Perfect.
Okay.
So there's a few different ways to create a calorie deficit, and there's a few different ways to, I guess, expend more calories. That would be Emily's bag, whereas eating fewer calories would be more my bag. So obviously, the calories that you eat come in through nutrition, and so you're going to be eating. I don't want to say less food. You'll be eating less calories through food.
Mhm.
And there's a few different ways of doing this. So the most kind of sciencey way and the most surefire way to know that you are eating fewer calories is my favorite way, which is tracking. But again, within tracking, there are loads of different ways to track your calories as well. So you can work out what your calories to maintain the same weight should be, reduce it by a certain percentage, and try and eat at that calories. So, as a general example, let's say you should eat 2,000 calories a day to maintain your current weight, but then you decide to eat 1,800 calories a day to lose weight. That's not a recommendation. This is just an example. You would then track all of the food that you're eating to track the calories that you're eating to make sure that you're sticking to 1,800 calories a day. That can be done in a few ways. You could download an app. Like, I need to think of other apps than MyFitnessPal. Do you know any others?
There's I want
My
to say it's called,
Macros.
yeah, my macros. There's a calorie count. I think it's called Calorie Counter, maybe. I don't know. My mom uses one. Carb Counter
Mm-hmm.
is one. So there's definitely a lot of different ones out there. MyFitnessPal, I think, is just one of those widely used ones, and you can scan barcodes and they have things already preloaded in there. Preface, always check and make sure it lines up because some of the inputs in there are not correct and will say that a chocolate bar has 0 calories, and that is false. So always double check it when you input information into there.
Perfect. And you can do it as kind of carefully and accurately as you want to. So you could weigh out your food gram for gram and then work out which is the most accurate input into MyFitnessPal. So I could weigh out, say, a portion of rice and then work out what is 100 grams of rice in MyFitnessPal. And that's going to be a relatively accurate way of doing it. But as Emily said, knowing that MyFitnessPal has inaccuracies. You could do it with cup sizing. So it could be a cup of rice or a cup of this or that or the other. And again, there's going to be inaccuracies with that. Did you know that US cup sizes and metric British cup sizes are different?
Are they really?
Yeah. And it's interesting
Wow.
because I use a lot of recipes online. So, say if I'm trying to bake something new, it works out fine if everything is done in cups because it's just that my bake will be smaller. But if it uses things like eggs that are a set size, of course, then it starts to get a bit wacky.
Weird.
Yeah. And it's about maybe like if you look at your cup size, my British cup size would be about a sixth smaller than yours.
Interesting.
Anyway, I kind of digress.
No, that's so fascinating to me, just in terms of like the health culture over here. And not to say that we are all like dramatically different, but looking at the health culture over here and just like our one cup is bigger than yours. And that just seems very odd and questionable and arbitrary. And
And I don't even know who decided it. Like ours is metric. I don't know if your cup sizes are imperial or whether it is a health thing.
I
I don't
am
know.
sure they are.
Your soda cup sizes are definitely to do with health and other
Yeah.
things.
They're enormous.
They are. So yeah, sorry. Let's go back. So you could track it with
Yes.
things like cups, and you could have, say, you could take your baseline data in cups. Like I eat 5 cups of veggies a day, and I eat 3 cups of carbs. Well, now I'm only going to eat 2 cups of carbs, or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
You could do it with hand measurements, which is really nice if you don't want to have extra faff. You can just do it by eyeballing it. So a portion of protein should be about the size of your palm. A portion of carbs should be a cup, a fist. A portion of vegetables should be a cupped handful. A portion of fat should be a thumb. What have I missed? Carbs, protein, fat.
Oils. How do you do oils? Or do you just, is
I
that just
think that's
more
the same as,
eyeballing?
yeah, I think that's the same as
Um,
thumbs as well.
oh yeah,
So
fats.
again, you could take your baseline data with how many how many palms of protein, how many how many fists worth of carbs am I eating a day, and then reduce it. And that would create a calorie deficit, because if you're eating less food, then, excuse me, then you would know that you're having less calories. And just a reminder with calories, protein and carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram, and fat is 9 calories per gram. So if you're looking at reducing the amount of calories, you're going to need to have a think about that. So often, like, people say low fat diets are best for losing weight. That's not necessarily true, but it is true that fats have more calories per gram.
Right.
So that would be a tracking way of doing it, where you would be able to track how many calories you're eating in a day, and you'd be able to then know for sure that you're in a calorie deficit. Do you think I've missed anything there?
No, I think we covered pretty much kind of like the basis of tracking. And again, there's so many different ways, so it's finding what way works best for you and your life and your where you're at. So
For
it's
sure.
all individualized.
And when I am tracking, I very much like to plan backwards. So I am very flexible with all of my food, but the one that has less flexibility is my evening meal that I have with Jim, because it's a shared food and I don't just get to dictate what he eats most of the time. And so I will plan into my Fitness Pal or whatever tracker I'm using what I'm having for dinner with him that day, to then know how many calories I've got left for the rest of the day. And so that's quite a helpful thing to do. And I'll often plan in my non-negotiables first. So I'll plan in my protein and I'll plan in my vegetables. And then I have whatever calories are left over to have fun with extra seeds or nuts or carbs or cereal bars or whatever fun things I want on top of that. So that's often quite a helpful thing to do when you're tracking.
Yeah, I like that. It's looking at what meal you kind of have the least control over in terms of other people deciding, or if you're going out to dinner and realizing like, okay, what am I going to have when I go to this restaurant? Like, we're all pretty much creatures of habit. If we go to a restaurant, you probably know what you're going to get. And so if you're going to have that meal, looking at that and then seeing what else needs to be in your day in terms of proteins and vegetables.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
So then if you don't want to track, and you might not want to track, particularly maybe people who get quite obsessive over numbers, who maybe don't have a particularly healthy relationship with tracking food, might want to do non-tracking ways. Maybe you just don't have time and you're not particularly numbers minded or science minded. There are a few different kind of like easy hacks that you could do to reduce your calories without tracking. So it could be that you just replace half of the carbs that are typically on your plate with vegetables instead. So say your dinner plate would typically be, maybe you'd have half a plate of pasta with sauce and veggies and meat. You would just swap out half of that pasta for a salad, or half of the potatoes that you would normally eat for boiled vegetables or whatever. You could just swap out your whatever you have as regular foods for low calorie or low sugar alternatives. So maybe for lunch you have a bagel, but instead you have a bagel thin. I don't know if your bagel thins in, yeah.
I do. They're great.
Instead of rice, you would have cauliflower rice. So you would just
Mhm.
switch out for whatever you normally have for a low calorie alternative. Instead of having dessert after supper every night, maybe you would have fruit instead. Or instead of a snack bar for your afternoon snack, you would have fruit instead. Maybe instead of having the more fatty meats, which are higher in calories, you would choose lower, leaner cuts of meat. So particularly things like mincemeat, often they have on the labels 10% fat, 15%, 5% fat. Actually, I can't really tell the difference. If I make a sauce with a 5% fat, it's much, much leaner. Instead of using cooking oils like that you pour, you could use a spray oil, and that reduces the amount of fat in your cooking. You can make sure that you drink more water. A lot of people confuse thirst with hunger, and so making sure that you're drinking enough. It also helps increase satiety, and some people have criticized me with this in the past, because those awful kind of pro anorexia sites will often encourage drinking lots of water to make yourself feel full. Of course, that's not what I'm saying, but if you are thinking that you're hungry and not drinking water, you actually might just be thirsty instead. You could reduce snacking. So you could just say, look, after dinner, I'm not going to have any snacks, or I just don't snack. I'm going to have 3 or 4 solid meals a day instead. You
Mhm.
could just reduce your portion sizes. You could have eating windows or have a look at fasting. Some people like to say have an eating window between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And that would in turn hopefully reduce your calories, assuming you're not just hooning calories in your eating window.
Yeah.
You could cut carbs or you could go low fat, and both of those would in turn reduce your calories. So those would be non-tracking ways to reduce your calories.
Yeah. And I like the swaps and everything too. And if even noticing what you're putting in your like morning coffee, if your creamer is very high in calories, those are very sneaky ways that come in. I know one of my clients and I talked about her coffee that she would get, and it was just full of sugar and calories that she didn't even know was in there. So taking a look at those things that you don't necessarily think about as often, but swapping those out.
One of my favorite Instagram accounts, I don't know if you follow him. I'm just trying to find, that's it. The Instagram account is called The Fitness Chef.
Mm.
And you've probably seen his visuals, but he has like two different food types next to each other. And it will be like pizza and pizza, tasty, still tasty. And one will be like a full fat, fully bready pizza. And then the next one will be the same pizza, but just with like half the amount of pepperoni on. And it will be 800 calories versus 500 calories or
Mhm.
whatever. And so his visuals make it very obvious how just simple swaps can really, really reduce your calories.
I like that. Definitely a visual learner over here.
Yeah. So that's how to kind of overall, in general, reduce the amount of calories that you take in, either by tracking or non-tracking. And then we come to the output. So calories in, calories out, reduce the amount of calories in. Can you outtrain a bad diet, Emily?
Yes. So in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. So there's this thing. So if you're just reducing your calories and you're not moving and you're not doing anything, you're going to have issues with losing weight, right? Because your calories out are not higher than your calories in. And so you want to look at what your exercise is. And so then it's simple. You can either track and increase it based on your minutes. We've talked about my brain just took a blank, but exercise minutes per week, right? That 150 level. But if you're not tracking that, you're not going to have this awareness of how many minutes a week you're working. But if you're just eating crap foods and then you're working out a ton, your body may also be just, if you're super high in calories, but you don't even know, and you're just like, but I'm working out 6 days a week for 150 minutes or whatever it is, you may not actually be expending, oh my gosh, where are my words today? Expending those calories that you actually think you are. Or if you're overtraining and you're under eating and you're doing actually too much, then you're not giving that body enough fuel to power through those workouts. I just had a client who learned the importance of eating prior to working out because she was lifting heavy weights and she hadn't eaten breakfast and got very faint feeling and was learning that like she needs to eat before she lifts. So she may be and her and I don't focus on nutrition, but she may be in a calorie deficit, but then she's training too much and not being healthy. So it's this option of like, you can't just train and eat a ton of food. You need to be in a calorie deficit, but also eating enough that you're supporting the energy expenditure that you are using during your workouts. So it's this balance of working out more and, well, not working out more, but working out enough that you're expending those calories more than what you're intaking, but also eating enough that you're supporting the workouts that you're doing. So it needs to be kind of in direct correlation. And you can't just jump up from a 30-minute walk a week to 5 days a week of strength training in 1 week, right? It needs to be this slow build, just like you're slowly decreasing those calories. You need to slowly increase the workouts and what you're doing in the calorie expenditure. I'm remembering that cardio is not the be all end all of workouts for losing weight. You need to strength train, you need to use resistance, you need to use dumbbells, use weights. That method of training, that is how the muscles burn calories, and that is how that energy expenditure increases. It's not just going on the treadmill for an hour a day at 12% incline, which I've seen people do that at the gym, and I know where their brains are kind of at when they're doing that. And it's,
It's boring as hell.
oh my gosh, like do a strength circuit. I've got my clients like huffing and puffing. Obviously with masks, it's even worse, but
Mm.
it's not, you don't have to go and be on the elliptical for an hour a day. That's not the way. That's not the way that this is going to work out and be sustainable. I don't want to be on an elliptical for an hour a day
No. And
or
next week,
10 minutes.
no, next week we're going to go into kind of deep health, which will cover
Mm,
more about this. But I guess as well, it's really individual. So I can
yeah.
already foresee the messages that we might get of, but Joe, Emily said that you have to eat before you train, but you're quite vocal about the fact that you intermittently fast and you wake up at 5 a.m. to do your workout. So, if you see the size of my dinners, I eat quite a substantial dinner every night. And say we eat dinner at 7 or 8 p.m. I then wake up the next morning and your body doesn't burn through that food and that fuel that quickly. And that's what gets me through. If for some odd reason I hadn't managed to eat dinner and I got up the same time to do the workout, I would probably feel like Emily's client did, and a bit woozy and
Mm-hmm.
a bit crappy. But it's just really individual. I'm also really used to
So,
intermittently fasting, and not going for food without 12 hours is fine for me, because for me, breakfast has to have peanut butter. And if I'm trying to maintain my weight, eating peanut butter every morning for breakfast doesn't work.
you and peanut butter, man. I love it.
I do. And so I guess, can you touch on NEAT as well? Because I think sometimes people overestimate the importance of exercise when actually NEAT is sometimes a bit more important
Yeah. So,
in
and I'm
terms of
not,
calories, not in terms of health.
yes. So, in terms of this, and again, this is more of Joe's area in terms of the nutrition side of this, and fitness is more my side, but the energy expenditure in terms of NEAT, so your
Exercise activity then.
non-exercise.
I
Oh
get
my
you.
gosh. See, I'm working on my nutrition certification, but again, it's not there fluently yet. But in terms of, and let me know if you were going in a very different direction with this, but when you work out and you strength train, your muscles are burning calories after you finish working out. So when you lift weights or resistance training, you're burning calories then. But then what you're essentially doing is you're breaking down the muscles, you're tearing them apart. The muscles are tearing and breaking apart as you train, which is when you get to that burning feeling of strength training and it burns. That's when that's happening. Then the muscles have to repair themselves. And that takes energy. Your body uses energy to repair those muscles. So that's why when we say strength train, resistance train, we say that because the muscles are repairing and using that energy after you finish working out versus when you are on the elliptical. I know we give them a bad rap, but it's boring. But when you're on the elliptical, you're not breaking down those muscles in the same way that you do when you strength train. And so that
Mm.
residual energy that's being used to repair isn't being activated after you work out. So you kind of get not free calorie burn, but in a sense, you don't have to do anything further after you work out to have that calorie expenditure while the muscles are repairing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. And so I guess we touched on briefly last week, but of all the total calories that you burn in a day, only a maximum of 10% of those will come from exercise, whereas 20% will come from NEAT. And when you're in a calorie deficit, your body will be try to be really clever at try to reduce how much you fidget and move to try and conserve energy, because our bodies are clever. And so making sure that you keep your NEAT up by planning in for walks or planning in for breaks from your desk, getting up and moving around is really important so that your NEAT doesn't go down. And I think fitness trackers like Apple Watches and Fitbits have a huge amount to answer for. Like I saw on Instagram the other day, one of my people said, "Oh, like I just went to the gym for an hour and burned 650 calories." I was like, "You didn't." Like on a good day, I think the most you could burn in an hour, if you went hard at it, and Emily might correct me, it's probably about 300 calories. And so
Probably around that.
people probably really overestimate the amount they burn in a workout, but
Mhm.
actually NEAT is so much more kind of in terms of just calories
Yeah.
and health. So we're going to go more next week into deep health and what that means, because losing weight or losing fat even is not the be all and end all. Some extra things that's really important when you're trying to be in a calorie deficit is making sure that you keep your protein intake high. Going for just a low fat or low carb diet and not thinking about your protein is a really bad idea. We can go into more of that next week. Having some flexibility around carbs and fat. So going too low carb, you're going to be really tired. You're probably not going to be eating a lot of vegetables and fruits and fiber, and you probably won't poop for weeks. But going too low fat is also a really bad idea. Particularly women, fat is really important for our hormones and for our skin, hair, and nails. So not having flexibility around those. For my clients, I will give them a vegetable, fruit, and protein goal, but I won't give them carb and fat goals because I want them to have like lots of nice flexibility around it. And it's you have to be really prescriptive and really precise to get all three of them in line at once. And you end up eating the same stuff day in, day out, which is dull. It's also really important to look at high volume foods. So I could eat 2 chocolate bars a day and be in a calorie deficit, but I would be hungry and miserable. But eating very high volume foods, so foods that you get a lot of food for the amount of calories. So vegetables are a really high volume food, for example, is really important. Planning for it. So being in a calorie deficit, you probably are going to be hungry on some days, but if you plan out your meals, then you can plan really carefully to make sure that you reduce that hunger because you have your food sensibly planned. And still understanding that it's an average over time. So I think too many people think, well, it's 2,000 calories a day, but tomorrow's a new day, so I'll just blast through my calories today. No, it's an average over time. And the surefire way that you'll know you're in a calorie deficit over time is if you're losing weight slowly over time. And that's the crux of it, really. It's an average over time. You can't eat 5,000 calories one day and 1,000 calories the next day and expect it to all to go well.
And you're going to be miserable.
Yes, that's called yo-yo dieting. And from a survivor of it, I can tell you it's pretty damaging. Not a good idea.
No, not at all.
Anything to add on this one?
I don't think so.
I'm excited to get more into the deep health of it next week. So next episode, we'll talk more about it's not just about a calorie deficit, because that will lose you fat, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. All righty. Where can they find us?
They can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group called behaveyourselfpod or Behave Yourself Podcast.
Yes.
You can email us at behaveyourselfpod@gmail.com. You can find Emily at emily.a.mcrae, MACRAE, on Instagram. And you can find me on Instagram with @thebehaviorlady, and behavior is spelt with a U because I'm from the UK.
And as always, we would really appreciate it if you guys left us a review. We have figured out you cannot leave a review on Spotify. Spotify has not given us that ability yet, or any podcast that ability yet, but you can do it on Apple Podcasts. So if you have sent us a message telling us how much you love it, please just copy and paste that over to a review. But as an incentive, once we get 10 podcast reviews, we will enter those names in to win a free 30-minute coaching session with either Joe, myself, or both of us together. So go on and leave us a review.
Perfect. As always, we are both behavior analysts and qualified in our respective fields, but this podcast is for education and information sharing only and shouldn't be taken as personal, medical, or behavioral advice or services.
Perfect.
See you next time.
Yeah. Bye.